Tuesday training. It's another great day for practitioner training. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad to see you here. It's Tuesday training for practitioners. This makes me very happy. It's a fun time of the week. And hi, everybody's coming in. Great. So good to see you. Hi, we're live. We're officially live. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. Gary, I'm glad you're here. Joshua, as always, lovely to have you. James, hello. So good to see you. All right. Hi, my friends. How are you today? Hi. Happy Tuesday training day. Hey, James, good to see you. All right. It's another fun hour. It goes by fast, but it's always fun. Well, I think it's always fun anyway to spend an hour with you on Tuesdays. Thanks for all of you who are here live with me. I love talking shop. What we're going to do today is talk plantar fasciitis. How many of you guys have navigated plantar fasciitis in your treatments? Yeah, Gary's like, that one's a good one. It's pretty popular, meaning it's common, and even more common than its prevalence is its misunderstanding and how to solve it. So I'm going to share with you today a way that I have created success every time with plantar fasciitis. It's not what you think it is. It's not in the shoes. It's not in the foot. And oftentimes we're told that it is. In fact, I just got an email today. I'm on lots of email anatomy newsletter email lists like you all. I'm hungry for the knowledge just like you. And looking to make sure I'm up to date on everything that's fabulous. And just today, I got an email in my inbox on plantar fasciosis, which we'll talk about the difference in the definition of terms. And there it was again in the shoes and in the foot. And I was like, oh, well, we're going to have a little race to the finish line here because I've got some information for you that you may not have already heard about unless you've talked to me about plantar fasciitis. So that's the topic for the day. That's what we're here to talk about. Whether you are a manual or movement practitioner, this information will apply to you. I promise you that. We got some new, fun, beautiful faces coming in. Let me make sure I say hi to everybody. Hey, Perry, good to see you. Len, as always, love having you here. And Cheryl's in the house. Lori's joining. Hi, everybody. Good to have you. Hello, hello. Plantar fasciitis is our topic for the day. If you are new here, James, I think I've seen your face before, which I'm happy to see. And there might be a few people here who are not yet on camera. Let me see if I've met all of you before. I think I have, which is lovely for me. Glad to have you. Welcome back. I'm Gina Schatz. I'm your host for the hour. If you're watching on the replay and you haven't been here before, maybe you just stumbled on it like, who are all these people and what are they doing? We're talking shop, where it's a training hour for practitioners, both manual and movement practitioners. We're talking anatomy, we're talking client work, we're talking solving pain symptoms at the source. I am going to pour into you for the hour that we're here together with tons of information and also open Q&A. So if you are willing to come on camera or come off mute and chat and contribute to the conversation, I would love to support you if you have some specific conversations. How am I qualified to do that? Who the heck am I? I am both manual and movement practitioner. I've been in the industry full-time for 31 years. So I've been around the block a bit, still seeing clients weekly, and was looking for, like you, looking for an answer. Hey, Kim, glad to have you here. On how to resolve their musculoskeletal pain and like really resolve it. Not like hope I resolved it or worry that they were going to come back or shoot, they did come back with the same pain. And what do I do now? I did everything I wanted to do last time. So I was on the hunt looking for answers like you all, which I love. That's why I love being here with you for the hour. And along the way, clinically, I developed the SHOTS method, which is from where I teach. From where I teach, is that grammatically correct? I don't know. I'm better at it. Oh, it is? Okay, great. Thanks. I'm much better at anatomy. I'm pretty good at grammar, though, which is why I think it helps me be an effective teacher. And the framework that I share with you is always anatomy based. Hello, we're body workers, so we get to know the anatomy. And the way that I navigate the anatomy and the results that I'm looking for are actually the way I work. So it doesn't mean it's the only way on the planet. It means that it's the way that works. Because I know I create results or I wouldn't teach it to you. You'd come back to me and be like, Gina, that doesn't work. You're a fraud. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. So everything that I share with you, I promise you, it's also how I work. Doesn't mean there aren't other ways. You know, every person, every client, every injury, of course, is its own petri dish of loveliness. We know this. So want to make sure, hey, June, good to have you here. want to make sure that, it's not being absolute. I just really want to impress upon you that this topic of plantar fasciitis has eluded practitioners for a long, long time, and it doesn't need to. So I'm going to share with you maybe a path that you haven't considered yet while working through plantar fasciitis. How's that sound? You guys on board for that for today? All right, all right. So first off, let's start with the I was going to say refinement, the clarity around plantar fasciitis and plantar fasciosis, which I've not heard very many times. And again, also in my inbox today, and I was like, ooh, is there something new I don't know? Should I look this up? Should I know what this is? Is it no longer plantar fasciitis? And so if you're having those questions, welcome, just like me. Anybody know the difference, by the way? Have you guys heard these two distinctions before, plantar fasciitis and plantar fasciosis? Have you heard these two? No, Lisa? Yeah, I hadn't either. Gary, you have? Yes, no, yes, kind of. I can't tell from your nodding. Perry's like, no, not yet. Okay, normal, good. For those of you who have heard it, do you want to weigh in? It's not to put you on the hot seat. It's actually to help your brain process the information. This is a safe space, so there will be no laughing or eye rolling or anything like that. But do you want to give it a run? What do you think you know about plantar fasciosis different than fasciitis? Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, one deals with inflammation, which is the itis,
Mm-hmm.
and the osis. I've heard the term, but I really don't know the difference. So
Okay, I
yeah.
love it. But there's a distinction there. This
Mhm.
goes right back to our medical terminology, right? So I'm a word nut for sure, always have been. And so it was one of my favorite classes in college was medical terminology. Don't freak out if it wasn't your favorite or if you didn't take that class. It's pretty easy. Hey, Lori, glad to have you. It's pretty easy to get caught up on medical terminology by just doing what we just did. Oh, what's this word? And now Google, right? Like back in the day, we don't need to talk numbers, but I did give away. I've been at this for a few decades now. We didn't have Google. When I was in school, we didn't have Google. We didn't have the wheel. We didn't have shelter. No, just kidding. We didn't have Google, but it's easy to get caught up on medical terminology right now by just doing what we just did. What's this word? And then give it a Google. Give it a little search. It doesn't have to be Google. You could also look it up somewhere else. But what we know about medical terminology is the suffix itis, itis, always refers to inflammation somewhere in whatever preludes, not really botching it, precedes, that's the word, that's the pre-word, precedes the itis. So it's whatever the thing is, and then itis at the end means that thing is inflamed. Great, so we know that plantar fasciitis means inflammation. Fasciosis is a degradation of the fascia. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how they can assess that in a living being. I'm just not sure how they can assess that because we know that we can't see fascia like on an x-ray, for example. So it's interesting. It's obviously newer because I have not heard of it until recently either. The key though for us as we're navigating, well, if you don't know what it is and how can you navigate it, here's how you navigate it. Because we're navigating the fascia. We're not navigating pathology. So if there's a degradation in the fascia, that's not in our scope anyway. So don't fret about it. That's how I navigate this word. But in both plantar fasciitis and plantar fasciosis, pain can be present. And so that's usually what will bring someone in, the pain, right? So they've either had a diagnosis of one of these two, or they have not had a diagnosis and they're self-diagnosing, which is also common. Folks get pain in the bottom of their foot and they also run to Google and they Google what causes pain on the bottom of my foot. Boom, plantar fasciitis shows up. Here's where we start to get lost in the sauce. If you look up Google plantar fasciitis, there is such a wide range of what to do about it, and most of it is ineffective and can actually encourage inflammation, which is really a bother. Because if we're sending folks, ineffectively to be their own WebMD into a place that just irritates the area, well, then that Google search didn't really support them. Eventually, they will come to you and they will be more insistent on what they have and more convinced that it can't be remedied, which is where our knowledge and know-how comes in. We get to definitely know what this is and what to do about it so that we can prove the situation right, that there is a resolve for it. So we want to make sure that we're there. And welcome to those of you who just popped on camera. It's good to see you. Good to have everybody here live. So don't fret too much if it's fasciosis or fasciitis. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure who does that diagnosing between the two, the distinctions between the two. I'm still not fussed about it. What I do know is that I'm navigating the fascia, and I can make a tremendous effect in a positive way if I'm navigating the fascia. So that's what we're going to focus on, the fascia. And yes, we're talking plantar fascia, and we know that it's probably not in the foot, and we'll run through that math here in a second. Focus just on the fascia for a moment. Let's just laser our focus there. What do we know high level about fascia? What do we know high level about fascia? Just popcorn out some ideas here. Again, this is really helpful. It's a helpful way to do learning. When you're learning something new, if you get bogged down by the information, just pause, rattle off a few things that you do know, bring your brain back into a flow state, and then carry on with new information. So popcorn out, what do you know high level about fascia? Doesn't have to be too detailed. What do you know about it?
Well, it's connective tissue that surrounds the entire body.
Beautiful. It's connective tissue, and it does run head to toe. Anybody else? Your fascia know-how. Fascia is a hot topic. Fascia is like a crowd pleaser all the time with body workers. So this should be a happy spot.
There's a superficial layer and a deep layer.
Very good. Superficial layer and a deep layer, both run head to toe.
It requires hydration, and it is also a communication conduit for cells.
Beautiful. Okay, awesome. And as we're learning here and sharing what we know, I'm sure other ideas are like, oh yeah, and then this, and then this. That's the point. You get into the flow state that takes you into problem solving. Okay. It's a little training trick there for you that I want everybody to have. Okay. What I want to also highlight for us around fascia, we go pasta. We go pasta. Some of you have seen this before. If you've done Inspired Beyond Anatomy with me, and others are like, what is she's gone mad. A bag of pasta specifically. These rubber bands represent the areas along the muscle that are anatomical for contraction. We're going to take those off right now. And what I want us to focus on, I'm sorry if it's loud. I don't know how this sounds over mic. It's either lovely or really irritating, not sure. The bag itself represents the fascia around the spindles that are the muscle. Okay, so the band of pasta noodles would be the muscle spindles. The bag that wraps around these spindles would be the fascia. Okay, each muscle has its own happy sac of fascia. And each fascia sac, just like if it came off the conveyor belt in the manufacturing plant that would create this bag situation, at one point, you can tell at the end, they were perforated, they were connected. Okay, so this muscle with a fascia bag was connected to at one time this muscle with a fascia bag. The fascia is what does the connecting, not the muscles themselves. So that's how we get to this idea of, this is landing for you, Joshua, great. This is how we get to the idea that it's an entire body head to toe, because we know we have muscles head to toe. Each of them has its own pasta sac, its bag, its fascia, and they're all connected as they go from head to toe. Okay, that's important as we start talking about plantar fasciitis, or the inflammation of the fascia in the foot. So it's the head to toe idea, connecting all the muscles. Okay, in today's email that I got, and in probably 9 out of 10 conversations that I've ever been included in around plantar fasciitis, there are lots of considerations around foot mechanics. It's in the foot, it's the fascia in the foot that's inflamed, so the foot is the problem, and so the inflammation is caused by poor mechanics, so we should work on the foot mechanics. Absolutely, 100% agree, for a lot of reasons. And I still don't think plantar fasciitis comes from the foot. So let me talk us through this. Just gonna grab one of Murph's feet.
Mhm.
Lots and lots of bones in this part of the body. Lots of bones, lots of joints connecting these bones together. Everywhere there's a bone, everywhere there's a joint, two bones meet. Everywhere there's a joint, the two bones meet, there's movement involved. Hello, that just tells us by the math that this guy is supposed to move like a lot. And we also know, we can break down the anatomy, that the foot is designed almost identical to the hand, with the exception of the opposable thumb. Same amount of joints, digits, etc. Very, very similar anatomy. We don't need to split hairs on that right now because that's not the topic that we're on, but go with me here for a minute and just explore that idea that if the foot and the hand are designed so similarly, with the exception of the position of the opposable thumb, and the hand has the ability to do this, wouldn't it suggest that so should the foot? All nod, please. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, great. So the foot should be able to do the same thing the hand does, relatively, super close anyway. We can split hairs about the distinctions in another conversation. The focus that I want to bring here, though, is that what we typically do with feet is we squish them together, put them in shoes, and walk around on concrete. Never for them to move anything close to a hand that can play the piano. That's a problem. That's a problem even if you don't have plantar fasciitis. Okay, so I'm all for foot mechanics, all for it. I'm all for feet looking like this. Absolutely. We talk about that a lot in our mastery track. We talk about it in other anatomy courses. You'll hear me say it again. If this is the first time you've heard me say it, it will not be the last. So absolutely focus on foot mechanics for sure. And that's not where plantar fasciitis stems from. One of the things that can happen, and it did happen to me too, originally before I found the solution that I'm not going to share with you today, is that because of what we do to the feet, we can spend a lot of time clinically making them look like this and move like this. So we can spend lots of time and it feels productive, and it is. This needs to happen for sure. But we're talking about remedying plantar fasciitis. So rather than get stuck or confused on returning foot mechanics to where they need to be, that might resolve issues in the foot. And there's also a chance that it won't, specific to plantar fasciitis. How do we know that? We know that because of the 80-20 rule. Who remembers the 80-20 rule? Some of you are writing it down. Some of you are like, oh yeah, that's right, 80-20. Wait, how does that apply here? Who remembers the 80-20 rule?
We remember 20% of what we learn.
There's 20, yeah, there's actually 80-20 everywhere on lots of things. 80% of the energy in the room is what takes all the focus. There's 80-20 everywhere. When it comes to pain symptoms, musculoskeletal pain symptoms, what we know is that 80% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. And in recent years, that number has increased to 90%. I learned it and always taught it as 80%. Now I learn from my trusted colleagues, it's more like 90%. I don't disagree with that. Let's be conservative though and say that it's only 80-20. That means then that plantar fasciitis, which is a pain symptom, remember we said that in fasciitis and fasciosis, both have pain. In the conservative number of 80-20 with plantar fasciitis pain symptoms in the bottom of the foot, there's still only a 20% chance the foot is where the problem is. And if we want to resolve pain permanently, we must do that at the source and not chase the symptoms. That's like tweetable. That should be a meme, right? So I agree that foot mechanics are a thing. I have even spent plenty of clinical hours remedying foot mechanics, and it was all necessary. So I'm not saying avoid that. What I'm saying is if you're navigating plantar fasciitis and only focusing on the foot, there's only a 20% chance you're going to resolve the problem. And I like to win 100%. I don't like to get 80% on a test. I like 100%. I know some of you are like that too, because you're in the academy right now and you're like, Gina, I'm not okay passing this quiz. I need 100%. Tell me the answer to the last question. And I am with you on that, my friends. Okay. So if it's not in the foot, 80% chance, where is it? Where is the source of plantar fasciitis? And Joshua, you got it? Tell us.
Calves. Calves,
say
calves, calves.
At first, I
Or-
thought you said
or-
abs. I was like, oh, abs. We're going to the
Sweats.
So calves, like from the knee down.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, awesome guess. I'm not sure why you guessed it, but we all know that the muscles in the foot start below the knee. So that could make sense, right? Bottom, it's like same muscle. What if it was somewhere else though? Where else could it be? Love the option, Joshua. Super awesome guess. And what if it could be somewhere else? Where else could it be? Perry?
Well, it's up to the hips.
Up to the hips. And Rhonda says sacrum. Tell me why. If
Well,
we
much of
know,
the alignment stems from the pelvic region, the sacrum.
yeah, that's right.
I had a client, I think 2 weeks ago. She was complaining about her right foot, and I was checking her hips, and I could see, oh, something's off.
Yeah.
So once I treated that, I didn't have to do much with the foot.
Yep, absolutely. And we know here, sacrum centric is the name of the game. The Schatz method is sacrum centric. If the sacrum is off, nothing else can be 100%, and we got that. In plantar fasciitis, that somehow gets lost in the sauce. But I'm going to show you today the actual anatomy that traces from the bottom of the foot all the way up to the pelvis, and how we can find the plantar fascial source, plantar fascial pain source in the pelvis. It may or may not be specifically the sacrum, but I love that you said that, Perry, because I love sacrum centric is the name of the game, is the keystone. For those of you, by the way, don't want to spin off too much. For those of you who are still interested in the sacrum course, yes, we are doing that. The new date is now in September. Summer was just too busy and folks weren't able to make it. So please let me know if you're still interested in that. And you'll also get an email from me if you already shared interest before. So September is our date for Sacred Sacrum. It'll be a live course. All right, let's walk through. I'm going to grab a leg. Let's walk through the anatomy for finding the source of plantar fascial pain. Now, I want to also just drop a seed here that while alignment is the name of the game and absolutely stems at the sacrum as the sacred bone of the body, the keystone of all the structure, plantar fasciitis is a two-way street. It's not just alignment of the sacrum. Has to happen, but it can't stop there or you're not going to get rid of the source of pain. So for those of you who might have already studied plantar fasciitis, there's a lot of conversation around its tension on this fascia. It's tension on this fascia. Oh, and that was another thing I read as I was Googling, like what would a client, you should, actually don't do it. It's stressful, but I was going to say you should Google this and see what they tell them to do. And they started flipping it from fascia to a ligament in the foot. I'm like, see, now you're like even confusing the anatomy. It doesn't even draw a straight line. That's like so unfair to people who are trying to solve it for themselves. So we're just going to solve it for them. On the bottom of the foot, there is a stirrup that is partly responsible for this arch that is supposed to be there. Doesn't have to be a gigantic arch, but we're supposed to have an arch there for purposes of gait and for absorption. Has to happen. Again, we talk about this when we do gait analysis. What are the two muscles that make up that stirrup? Anybody know? Two muscles that make up the stirrup? Going once. Going twice. Laura, you trying to unmute? I just gave you a pop-up. Does that help?
Thanks. Yeah. Gosh, every time on the phone, right? I believe Pronis longus goes down and wraps. And then the other one, this is a guess, tib anterior. Does it go on the other side?
It is the other muscle of the stirrup, and I want that to not be a guess for you.
I know.
Yeah. Peroneus longus and tibialis anterior make up the stirrup on the bottom of the foot. Why is this important? Because peroneus longus which is one of the two muscles that is responsible for this arch, which is needed for absorption as we walk, is also responsible in supporting gait in uneven surfaces. It's got a game plan around eversion. Now there is a peroneal group, so there's more than one muscle in the peroneal group. Peroneus longus is the one that happens to connect here, and then you can sort of include the other peroneals as you start thinking about the stabilization of the foot, supporting the foot in uneven surfaces. Now this is important because we know that the foot is designed to walk on uneven surfaces. It's supposed to look like a piano player. Really important, because if we're not using that muscle to support gait on uneven surfaces, what happens to the muscle?
It weakens.
It weakens. It absolutely weakens.
Or
What is
atrophy.
or atrophies? Yep, it weakens and it can be tight. And tightness can be from atrophy. Tightness can be from, we know there's several different types of tightness. There's a YouTube training on practitioner training on that here on our YouTube channel. So if the muscle weakens, if it's not used, hold that. What's the number one suggestion for folks when they have plantar fasciitis pain? What's the number one suggestion?
To wear hard
The
shoes.
rest. Yeah.
To rest, so not use the muscle.
Mhm.
To wear hard shoes, so not use the muscle.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's to add ice, which is great for the inflammation,
Yeah.
but it doesn't solve the problem. And if you go to physical therapy, they stretch you. Put a foam roller on that baby, put a tennis ball on the floor and roll that fascia over and over and over again, and technically release the muscle that's already not strong enough to do its job. This, my friends, is where I start to lose my cool when I talk to manual and movement practitioners, because when we're not skilled yet at this level, manual practitioners like to dig harder and movement practitioners like to stretch longer and deeper. And my friends, we must follow the anatomy to decide if that's the actual course of action that's needed. The way you do that is by knowing your muscles, knowing what they do and whether they're doing their job or not. So back to peroneus longus. If you look at its job, it's got a huge job to support the foot in uneven gait, uneven surfaces, not uneven gait. We want even gait in uneven surfaces. We're not offering the foot that, so that muscle's not getting stronger. Now, not only is that responsible for the arch of the foot, think about how many clients you have with arches that are not substantial as they should be, and how many clients you have with plantar fasciitis pain. Now we're into weakness of muscles. Hold that thought, it's going to come back later. This is why it's not about the shoes, my friends. All right, peroneus longus, we're going bottom to top here. Peroneus longus, as it comes from the arch of the foot all the way up. Anybody know its attachment point?
Cuboid.
Its origin. How about origin?
Fibula head.
Yeah. So right there, right at this happy little fibula. Beautiful. Okay, great. What other muscle has attachment points at this bone?
Vastus lateralis.
Vastus lateralis.
IT band.
That I think, does it go to the fibula or does it go to the tibia? Think about another muscle. Maybe, Rhonda. I'm going to say maybe on that one. I'd have to look it up for sure. I'm thinking of another muscle, though.
Hamstrings.
Yeah, which one?
Oh, who remembers?
Well, that's okay. Sometimes we need to be reminded. Here's and I just illustrated that. Don't panic if you don't know all the muscles and their attachment points. However, I do want you to have training that at least took you through it once. So I've been through muscle training many times, and I've taught a course on muscles and movements, an awesome course that we have. And still, if you don't rehearse this information, you'll forget it. It's like, use it or lose it idea. No problem. But I know exactly where to go to get the answer. And then I'm reminded, and here's the key. I'm not just reminded of the data. I want you to learn your muscles in movement. That's why that's my course. I don't want you to just memorize attachment points. I want you to memorize the muscles and what they do for a living, because that's what we're doing right now. What does this muscle do for a living that's going to get me to the answer to solve this client's chief complaint? You don't want to just memorize attachment points. We want to know what they do. So it's one of the hamstring muscles. Very good, Rhonda. Awesome. It's semimembranosus. Also attaches here. And this is not a very big bump. So while there's different bony landmarks on the head of the fibula, the attachment points are super close together. Which brings us back to the attachment points are super close together. So now we've got the fascia bag situation going on between the peroneus longus and semimembranosus. We've got the fascia bag going on right here at the fibula, which means that now we get to trace the line. Where does semimembranosus go? And when he goes up and back behind the femur, where does he end up?
Ischial tuberosity.
Ischial tuberosity. Now we're talking pelvis. Oh, hey, here we go. He's on the ischial tuberosity. So that's his attachment point. Also, the other hamstrings attach there too, but he's the only one that attaches at the fibula that ties us to the function of peroneus longus. So that's how we follow the fascia band. Now we're up at the ischial tuberosity, and then what happens? Do the muscles stop there? No, they don't. What else happens here? I'm kind of holding him in, I'm giving you a suggestion. What else happens here muscularly? So follow the pasta bags. What else where would the next perforation line be here? Anybody know?
Pelvic floor.
Yes, the pelvic floor muscles, which are now all inside here. Inside here, I don't want to block it. Inside here, not specifically on the sacrum yet, but definitely related to the alignment of these Lego blocks, the Lego blocks being each innominate and the sacrum itself. Now we're up into pelvic floor muscles. Do we see pelvic floor muscles move?
Yeah.
See. Do we
Oh.
see them move clinically? Are you seeing pelvic floor muscles move clinically? Because y'all need to like just hang up from my channel right now. No, we don't. They're covered. And they're not phasic muscles. They don't do gross motor movement. They don't move the body from point A to point B. Now we're in a different classification of muscles, intrinsic muscles, also in Inspired Beyond Anatomy and in our muscles and movement course. You got to know intrinsic muscles, my friends. You got to know intrinsic muscles. Even though I had several rounds of muscle training myself, I was not taught intrinsic muscles, the actions that they do, and the implications they have on clinical symptoms. But I'm here to tell you it's a huge piece of the puzzle. In fact, it's an entire touchstone in the SHOTS method. So now we're in pelvic floor. Now we're in muscles that are directly connected to the bottom of the foot from the pelvic floor. And what did we say was the quality or the condition, if you will, the state of affairs with peroneus longus?
Weak.
Weak. So what do you think that means all the way to the chain, following the chain all the way up? Do we get stronger as we get to the sacrum? Do we get stronger when we go from phasic muscles to intrinsic muscles? If you're like, what the heck's an intrinsic muscle? It's okay. Please mark it down. Get some training on it. I'm telling you, it's a game changer clinically. It's probably in 7 of my courses, 7 out of 20, maybe more. I mean, I'm kind of conservatively guessing. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, which is, again, why I really want you to have this information about plantar fasciitis today, because I haven't heard it prevalently trained, and we're missing it. We're still rolling ice water bottles, frozen water bottles on the bottom of the foot, trying to fix plantar fasciitis. And my friends, there's such a huge world of opening of possibility here of what we can affect. Phasic muscles are classified in 2 different camps, phasic and intrinsic. The phasic muscles do gross motor movement. They're the ones you know the names of. They're the ones your clients might know the names of. Hamstrings, quadriceps, biceps, triceps, the ones that when they contract, you see the body physically moving. Personal trainers refer to them as mirror muscles. You see them moving in the mirror, okay, even with your clothes on. Intrinsic muscles, not true. You don't see them moving. close on or off. Some of them you can't even see. They're super close to the bone. They're tiny. Their job is not phasic action. Their job is not gross motor movement. Their job is balance and alignment. That's their job. It's a twofold job. So if now we're into a balance issue or an intrinsic weakness issue in the pelvic floor, do we think we need to stretch to get rid of plantar fasciitis? Heck no. God, what a wasted opportunity. Now what we need to do is strengthen intrinsically. We need to strengthen intrinsically because the nemesis to intrinsic muscles is gravity. For those of you who are personal trainers and you're measuring muscle girth and, weight loss and, expansion of muscle spindles, and thank God for you, because clearly I'm blubbering here. It's not my job on the planet, but there are people who are doing that. We need to do that. Sarcopenia is a real thing. We need to develop muscle strength for sure. And all of that measuring is measured on phasic muscles. We don't touch intrinsic muscles. It's one of the reasons why I'm positive that alignment matters, because without optimal alignment, you will never get to an intrinsic muscle. We talked about that in the lever system masterclass this past spring. You got to be in alignment because that's the job of intrinsic muscles, is to hold alignment and to create balance. That's their role. If you're not holding alignment and distorting it, that muscle has no chance to strengthen. They're tiny. Okay, and we won't see them happening. Now everybody's changing their posture, which I love. The power of suggestion. See, so when we know this, when we know better, we do better. Same with our clients. When they know better, they do better. So now we're going back to the client who has suffered for a while with pain on the bottom of their foot, and they've foam rolled that puppy, and they've ice bagged that puppy, and they have done deep tissue work, and maybe they even found a manual therapist who was willing to work deeply on the feet. Most of us don't do a good enough job there. Remember, piano feet is the name of the game. If you skip over feet in your general massage, please go back and do a better job. It's needed. You're like missing a big part of it. And we need the feet for optimal gait. If someone has pain on the bottom of one foot, their gait is distorted, and now their alignment is affected. And now we can go to the sacrum and be like, oh, your sacrum's out because your gait's been off. Let me fix your sacrum and your gait won't be off. Not if the pain's still there. They're just going to hobble back out of alignment. And the pain is in the bottom of the foot due to weakness. Due to weakness. Doesn't need to be stretched or deep tissued. Needs to be strengthened by optimizing alignment and engaging intrinsic strength. That's the name of the game. That is the resolution for plantar fasciitis. Every client that I have walked through optimal alignment and intrinsic strength in my treatment setting, when they have come in with the diagnosis or the self-diagnosed complaint of plantar fasciitis, every single one of them, when I walk them through that process, says, oh my gosh, I feel this in my foot. Right. And we're not working on their foot because that fascia band is real. Gary, you said it earlier. It's a conduit. It relays information. And even if we're not on that board and we don't agree with that yet, we certainly know that muscles refer. We know actually that all pain in the body has a reference possibility, and at least 80% of it does. So there is a conduit of connectivity between body parts as they're connected. There's no part of our musculoskeletal system that is a lone island, that is just on its own, not connected to anything else. There's no part. Even things like the hyoid bone, where they're like, oh, it doesn't really articulate with it. Yeah, but it's not floating there by itself. It's got soft tissue around it. It's got blood near it, right? Everything is interconnected when we talk about the body. We are interconnected, my friends. We are our body. We are interconnected. If you're lone wolfing it out in the world, side note here, but not really. If you're lone wolfing any part of your life or your learning, stop that. You're going against the grain. That's not how you're designed. You need each other. We need each other. That's why y'all are here. I love it. I love Tuesday trainings. So back to optimal alignment and intrinsically strengthening the pelvis specifically and the columns, meaning the legs that support that pelvis, and tying that all the way back to mobility in the foot last. Because it's not the mobility that's missing unless you're saying to yourself, but Gina, if I establish mobility in the foot, meaning the client is moving the foot, I'm not deep tissuing it and releasing it, that's not creating mobility, guys. I want to be really clear on these terms here. When we're doing deep tissue work or we're stretching, we're not restoring mobility. We're creating access for mobility. Mobility means the person's moving. They've got to do the mobility. So we're creating an access point. They do the mobility. They're doing the moving. They're getting stronger. That's how it works. And we've already, I think, agreed that there is a connection for sure in plantar fasciitis symptoms or diagnoses and the need for more strength. Have I convinced you of that? You guys all on board with that idea? Okay. So yes, for mobility in the foot. And if you're thinking that mobility in the foot creates strength, you're right, because anytime a muscle is contracting, it's getting stronger. And we've tied this to intrinsic weakness, not phasic weakness. Most people need both, for sure, but we got to make sure we touch on that intrinsic strength and not stop at the phasic strength and call it complete. So what we've eliminated now is we're not going to focus on the foot. We're not going to foam roll the arch of the foot. We're not going to just limit it to ice and get the itis part of the plantar fasciitis diagnosis to go away, because the body is like, hey, yo, I have an issue up here that you can't see, and I'd like some support, like real support. The body's like being friendly by saying, hey, I've got a problem. Please connect the dots for me. That's our role. That makes us like look like magicians. So we're not going to foam roll it. We're not going to only resolve it with ice. And yes, we're going to work on the muscles of the feet, including the calf, as Joshua reminded us of, from the knee down, because we want to create piano toes. But we're not going to stop there, because we know that this ties to pelvic floor weakness. And we need more alignment across the board, just in general. And now I'm going to ask you, honest engine, how many of your clients do you believe have pelvic floor weakness? How many of your clients do you believe have pelvic floor weakness? Some, all,
All of
none?
them. Probably all of them.
Most.
Most.
Yeah, most.
Most. So here we go, like case in point. In fact, I would also say, my dear hearts, you probably have pelvic floor weakness as well. If you're sitting right now and you're not stopping the flow of urine and engaging muscles, you're weakening your pelvic floor. It's just how it is. You're lengthening the muscles and you're not contracting them, and gravity is winning. Remember, gravity is the nemesis of intrinsic muscles. Gravity didn't stop pulling on you just because you sat down. So stop the flow of urine and see how long you can hold that. If it's not more than 10 seconds, there's pelvic floor weakness there. Now, before anybody comes at me and says, well, you don't know about pelvic floor, blah, blah, blah. Most people have tight pelvic floor and you're, okay, I got it. Yep, I hear you. There is a prevalence of tightness that comes with muscles that aren't being used, for sure. But you can be weak and tight. What I'm appealing to us is that we need strength. So if you need to release something that's tight before you get it stronger, go for it. That doesn't mean that what I said was incorrect. So just walk through what the body needs. And sometimes it's 2 steps forward, a half a step back, 2 steps forward, 1 whole step back, a turn to the left, and then 2 steps forward. Sometimes that's what a treatment plan looks like. What we want to do is just have our sights on where the goalposts are. There's 2 of them, where the goalposts are, and head there without getting distracted. Picking up pieces along the way, sure. Adding them to the mix because they're needed, absolutely, is not the same as getting distracted and derailed and spending all of a session on only working deep tissue on the bottom of the foot for plantar fasciitis. We just piece the whole thing together, and that's not the remedy. So it's actually not shoes. You should take them off, put toe spreaders in, and tap the floor with your toes. It's not about changing the shoes. It's plantar fasciitis is not in the feet. Okay, and I feel like that's a good place for me to drop the mic and end the rant there. I'd love to answer any questions if you have any. Anybody have any questions on anything we just covered or anything else that's come up for you? Any questions? I'm going to take a sip of water because I talked so long, I got cotton mouth.
Hello.
Are we tracing the pelvic floor to the coccyx to the sacrum, or we're just leaving it at the pelvic floor?
You're focused on the strength of the pelvic floor, and in order for the pelvic floor to regain strength, the pelvis must be aligned. We know that from our the SHOTS method formula, alignment, strength, function. There's a masterclass on that if you want it. I'm not pitching courses here. I'm just letting you know the information's out there. We need to do alignment first before the muscles can fully strengthen. We talked about that a bit in the lever system masterclass as well. In order for a muscle to contract fully, it's responsible to its connection on the two bones. So it's kind of both, Rhonda, alignment of the pelvis and then strengthen the pelvic floor. What we don't need to focus on often at all is the coccyx, because while it's a movable joint, it's not weight load bearing in any way. But if you meant sacrum, and sacrum is part of your question, then yes, you do want to look at the sacrum as well. So alignment of the pelvis and the sacrum, which is part of the pelvis, alignment of the three bones that make up the Lego blocks of the pelvis, intrinsic strength, make sure the columns all the way down are also aligned, all the way to the arch of the foot. Remember, that's where we started this ball of wax. That muscle on one of the two muscles that create that stirrup on the arch of the foot, peroneus longus, needs to be strong, needs to be healthy. Okay, great. Good question. Lisa, did you also have a question?
Yes. Do we just, how do we do strengthen the pelvic floor? There's lots of ways.
There are lots of ways, yeah. And I love that you're like, let me get at it, let me get at it. So we talk about intrinsic strength you're in our mastery track, which we love. We talk about intrinsic strength. It's an entire touchstone of the method. So we cover it in about 2.5 months. So you'll get a whole tutorial on all the intrinsic muscles in the body and what to do about them. What we need to do first before we strengthen intrinsically, as we just talked about, and this is good review, we need to do alignment first, right? Which is the first touchstone that we're going over right now in the first module of the mastery program. That first core bit of information we're covering, you'll get the big piece of it then. So here's the magic of that. When we teach folks what optimal alignment is, when we teach them how to pattern, I'll get to your question, Kim. When we teach folks how to pattern their body, we call it in the SHOTS method repatterning, because we're returning them to how their body is designed to be used. When we're returning our folks into the alignment that they're meant to be in to function well, just being in that alignment can create strength. Not because alignment creates strength, but because the absence of alignment creates so much weakness that returning someone back to their optimal alignment by nature creates more strength. And then what we want to do with a diagnosis like plantar fasciitis is then add strength on an aligned form. And that takes a bit to learn, and you're right there, Lisa. So you'll get it. And I guess what I wanted to say was, don't worry that like, oh, I don't know intrinsic strengthening yet. You'll have some of it along the way, and then it'll just keep compounding as we go. Kim says, can they, Lisa, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Kim says, can they also have pelvic floor tightness, loss of control as well? Yeah, so we did say that you can have tightness and weakness. And tightness and weakness might be one of those, well, I need to create a release first from the tightness to then activate the muscle to create strength in it. And that might be it's client specific. That might be one of those where in order to take this step, I've got to go back and do this step before I can take that step. So you just want to follow that, but absolutely tight and weak can be the same. And we have lots of conversations here on Tuesday training about tightness, and I really recommend that you guys learn the differences of tightness. Only one type of tightness requires that you release the tissues. So for all of us who like to do, and this is where I was being a little theatrical to be funny before, all of us that like to do a lot of deep tissue release or a lot of longer hold stretches because of tightness in the body, does it feel good to the human receiving it? Yes, because we're sensory beings and sensation feels good because we're interconnected and we want to be touched. But is that remedying the source of the pain? No. In only one type of tightness would that be the resolution. So I just want you guys to like know that. And again, it's just a, you know, next level sort of caliber of learning, which you guys are all here for and already know. Then Kim says, how much does muscle amnesia play into the issue in your opinion? Muscle amnesia, how much does muscle amnesia play into the issue? I'm going to think that you mean of plantar fasciitis, in my opinion. Maybe you mean an intrinsic weakness though, Kim, and I'm not sure what you mean by that. So I'll go with plantar fasciitis. Oh,
like
hi.
The mind muscle motor, you know, where the mind is cueing the muscle to the to make the movement, and there are times when that pathway gets turned off, and so your mind goes to tell the foot to make that movement, and it might be a small movement that it's forgotten how to do, and so it's a relearning of that neural pathway.
It is a relearn.
Sort of like Feldenkrais kind of idea.
Yep. And so your question about that is, how much does that play in?
Mm-hmm.
Play into what?
Well, into this whole idea of strengthening and of getting, like, to me, that's sort of a component of getting that alignment right, I guess, or reminding your body how it's supposed to move and work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the processes that we strategically work through in our program, because it takes a minute to get all of that sort of synthesized, like get all the pieces of it and then synthesize it together. So what you're asking is right on par here, Kim, because it's kind of what Rhonda and Lisa were also asking. So neural pathways, first, my thought is neural pathways don't just randomly become disconnected.
Right.
Okay. So we want to always remember that the body's whole. So we don't want to get like petrified or nervous or anything like that when we think like, oh my gosh, the brain is not telling the body what to do. There is neuroplasticity. There is patterns in the body. We're designed a certain way. We get to trust all of that. That's what we cover when I was talking to Lisa about repatterning. That whole repatterning, getting the brain and the body to align on what's appropriate, optimal, and then get that all to happen. Huge piece of the puzzle. Absolutely. Secondary to that is when the body's not been optimal in form or function, alignment or movement, interchangeable terms there. When the body's not been optimal in either form or function for some time, the muscles can't contract fully.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked about that also a bit ago as well. So then it's not a matter of the muscles turned off or the neural pathways blocked. It's if I restore the alignment, now the muscle's designed to contract, it will. Sometimes it requires that we intervene a little bit. The body, again, is a sensory vessel. Sometimes just one finger point on a muscle to remind the muscle, hey, this is where I'm focused here, is plenty to get the reaction to happen in the spindles for contraction to occur in a muscle. We could talk about each of the muscles one-on-one and like an alignment issue, but I don't get too nervous. And you asked me my opinion. Clinically, I don't get too nervous when I see a muscle that looks atrophied or appears to have amnesia. I just know that I need to do repatterning, get that alignment solid, internal alignment and external alignment. They're not the same. And then I need to know what muscle's supposed to do the job and have a plan to encourage him to do it. I don't need to worry that he's not going to do it again. I just need to set up a foundation for it to happen, and it will every time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Fun question. I feel like I want us to all like go clinically together. Like, can you guys all come to my clinic tomorrow and we can all like hang out? No? Okay. Well, you're in your corners of the world doing amazing work, which I love as well. So that's fantastic. Okay, my friends, this has been a fun conversation. Did you guys learn something new about plantar fasciitis? Do you have a new approach, something you're going to try differently? Okay,
So,
fantastic.
another question.
Sure.
How do we tend to the pain for the person as we're getting them into alignment?
Such a good
Because-
question. Yeah, Lisa, it's such a good question. Sorry, did I cut you off? Was there still another part to your
No,
question?
that's good.
Okay.
No.
I like to look at the pain part of it as some of that step forward, one step forward, half a step back, one step forward. So do I want my clients to be comfortable? Of course. Like that's literally what I'm in the business to do, is to make sure they're comfortable. So I'm not one of those clients that's like, no pain, no gain, and just do deeper breathing and stop your bitching. Like I'm not that person. And I know that just like working out, like some of you guys like work out regularly, some of you don't. I don't work out regularly. I work out. I wouldn't use the word regularly to describe that. I love the outcome of working out. I don't love working out. And every time I work out, it doesn't feel like a massage or a bath. I wouldn't call it comfortable. Whether you like it or not, it's not a comfortable feeling. So in that way, I know that a little bit of patience or tolerance or calming needs to also be added to the mix. And the client needs to trust me to take them there. But it's not an endurance act by any means. In fact, it should be easy for you to get people out of pain. It should be easy for them too, because all we're doing is restoring them back to their design. We're not reinventing the wheel here, guys. We're just taking them back to how they're designed. Should be relatively easy. If you're exhausted at the end of your day and sweating over a table and your clients leave looking like they're frazzled, you both worked too hard. It just doesn't have to be that hard. It just doesn't, because we're just returning them back to their initial design. So back to your question, Lisa, they don't need to endure anything and they might not be comfortable the whole time, but it shouldn't feel arduous for them either. And of course, in Mastery, you'll learn best practices on how to create that. That's what implementing is about. You got to implement so that you know if you're actually creating that, if you're working hard or if you're working easy. Okay, did that answer it for you, Lisa? You're muted. Lisa, unmute so I can hear you.
Oh,
There you go.
so to send them out of our office, they're going to be walking and the pain is right there until maybe they see us again.
No,
when
you
they
should
see
be
us
making,
again.
if you're a shots method practitioner, you should be making great strides with every session. There's no Groundhog's Day, rinse and repeat. You come in pain, you leave in pain, you come back in pain. If that's happening, we need to implement the method better, because it just doesn't happen.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
All right.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, my friends, this has been a very fun hour. I appreciate you all participating in such a rich conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you also for the incredible work you're doing out there in the world. I'm delighted to know that we're sharing this important role, because I can't get to the people in your corner of the world, but I trust you that you will. So thank you for participating and for being here. I look forward to hearing all of your successes next week. Cheryl, you're so lovely. Thank you, hand on heart. And I'll see everybody here again next week.
Gina,
Bye for
real
now.
quick. Oh, no,
Oh, yeah.
bye. No,
Go ahead,
no,
Lori.
it's okay. I think I just hit unmute. I just had a client this morning that's like, do you handle fascial plants? Do you plantar fasciitis? And I was like, yes, I do. And I'm like, oh gosh. So thank you. I think we were channeling each other when you had this. So I'll let everybody know I'm sure he'll be in soon. So I'll let everybody know how that goes.
It's so awesome. Our clients always know we have the answer, even if it's 5 minutes answer after they schedule. I love this for you. All right, great. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, guys. See you guys next week.
Okay, now bye.
Bye for now.